Okay. President Obama launched My Brother's Keeper in February of 2014 to address persistent opportunity gaps facing boys and young men of color and to ensure all youth can reach their full potential. In 2015, the My Brother's Keeper Alliance was launched, inspired by My Brother's Keeper to scale and sustain this mission. In late 2017, My Brother's Keeper Alliance became an initiative of the Obama Foundation. Within the Obama Foundation, MBK Alliance focuses on building safe and supportive communities for boys and young men of color where they feel valued and have clear pathways to opportunity. So this is a quote from President Obama from a gala in 2014. I'm launching My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge, asking every community in the country, big cities and small towns, rural counties, tribal nations, to publicly commit to implementing strategies that will ensure all young people can succeed, starting from the cradle all the way to college and a career. It's a challenge to local leaders to follow the evidence and use the resources on what works for our kids. So what came out of this initiative is something that we read about recently. Washington's Round Brown College Preparatory High School is something that has sprung up in Washington, D.C. And this happened in 2016. And this is directly connected to Barack Obama's wish to empower young people and minority groups. So here's the article about this school, which is just astounding, and it just resonates with what His Holiness the Dalai Lama is hoping for in schools. Like many of the 100 or so freshmen who enrolled last August at Round Brown College Preparatory High School, Zion Matthews had mixed feelings. He'll freely admit, as many of his classmates will, that he signed up at the all-new, all-boys school for one reason. His mother insisted that he apply. 10 months later, he concedes that he's sold on the place, and he will tell you that girls are sort of like the problem in school. Well, I think everybody involved is sort of like the problem in school. He says it's too much commotion. That I agree with. It's too much extra stuff. There's a lot of extra stuff, that's for sure. One of BC's newest schools, Round Brown, is also its only single-sex public high school, the only one, and it's named after the first African-American U.S. Commerce Secretary. The school is part of the D.C. Public Schools Empowering Males of Color initiative. The effort seeks to help the city's young African-American and Hispanic men, a group that has struggled for years. In the 2014-15 school year, just 57% of Black males in D.C. and 60% of Hispanic males graduated on time, compared with 87% of their white peers. Nearly a year into the effort, students and staff bristle at the word experiment. Ron Brown is ready for more. The school year ended last month, so this article came out last year, with about 90% of its entering freshmen still enrolled, and has opened up waiting lists for both the incoming freshman and returning sophomore classes. While single-sex classrooms in public schools have waned in the U.S. over the past 5 years, the number of single-sex schools is growing despite legal challenges. The American Civil Liberties Union last year said that the boys-only structure raises significant legal and policy concerns, and that the district relied upon research that was based upon unproven and legally impermissible stereotypes. However, with all of that criticism happening, Carl Racine, D.C.'s Attorney General, has said that the initiative is constitutional because its rationale, which is to address the educational deficiencies of D.C.'s most at-risk students, is exceedingly persuasive. And he also said it doesn't undermine opportunities for minority female students. Key to Ron Brown's success, staffers say, is an unusual approach to discipline and team building introduced to students before classes began last fall, that all but prohibits out-of-school suspensions. So you can behave as badly as you want, and they're not going to kick you out. So-called restorative justice offers victims the opportunity to confront classroom tormentors face-to-face. If students get into a fight, for instance, they're not suspended, as they are in other DC schools, as they are around the world. They must come together with others in their class in a circle and talk openly about how the conflict affected them. Even bystanders are expected to take part. Students name names and they don't hold back. One of the counselors, who's one of the founders, Dr. Charles Curtis, says, "The circle allows students to confide in others about family difficulties. At least 4 students lost parents over the school year and several lost other family members." 10 months later, Curtis, who's one of the founders, is more devoted to the technique than ever, saying that the identity development of young men is marred with expectations of criminality, expectations of pathology, expectations of aggression, and hypersexuality, and all that other kind of stuff that people impose on them. So if that's what's expected of you, and that's what you're called, and that's what you've grown up knowing that that's what you are, in my experience, seeing people, and in looking at my own life, that's how you're going to behave. And that's how other people are going to just absolutely slap a label on you immediately. The school's approach is to smother students in affection. And if you ask the students, sometimes it's overwhelming attention. Teachers and staff inquire about their families. They talk almost non-stop about the future, about planning and risk-taking and second chances. After school, they offer rides home and walk students to nearby bus and subway stops. "You can see they actually do care," said Matthews. "They don't just leave you out in the wind." He recalled that at his former school, a middle school, uniformed guards, not teachers, patrolled the bus stop. The restorative approach actually requires a bigger commitment to discipline than simply sending misbehaving students home to their parents for a few days. For one thing, there may be nobody home. Most of the students, he said, have really bought into the idea that suspension is not a consequence for behavior, that they're going to have to take ownership for their behavior at some point. In a few cases, he said, suspending a student is necessary, however, when safety is concerned. Since August, the school suspended a total of 4 students for drug and weapons violations, a fraction of what most high schools experience. For most offenses, Williams said, suspending students is almost a cop-out for the school because they're not willing to deal with the aftermath of the situation. They're not willing to work with the student to get them to a point of forcing them to be accountable for those behaviors. It's a process and it takes a lot of time. He estimated that it took until mid-October for most students to face the reality that no matter how badly they behaved, they wouldn't be sent home. One student recalled with a laugh, "I was trying to do stuff to get suspended every day. I worked so hard at that, and they wouldn't suspend me." Before arriving at Ron Brown, Williams said that many students would act out in class to hide their deficiencies, to hide their fears, to hide their inability to access the work. That's a mask that they wore for a long time, and slowly, slowly, they're learning to take it off. I'd just like to say, from my own experience, this past year and a number of times that we've done skits and during Living Vinaya in the West, I chose to be the difficult one, and it's a blast. It's really fun to be bad, because what it is it gives you a sense of predictability, and it gives you a sense of power, and then nobody expects anything of you except that you're going to be bad. So it's great. I totally get it. It's way more work to face how you could actually change and blossom. Curtis, the school psychologist, recalled that last fall he met at least 4 rising freshmen whose transcripts showed they hadn't taken a single 8th grade class, likely because their skills were no higher than a 7th grade level. Ron Brown, which has no entrance requirements and admits students via a lottery, accepted them and has worked to improve their skills. Matthews, another student now 15 years old, recalled that he had arrived at the school ready for trouble. He's just accustomed to talking back to teachers and giving them grief. The first surprise? The school's required uniform. A navy blue blazer, white Oxford shirt, and purple and gold striped tie. There were pictures in this article. These kids look fantastic. Just great. He wasn't happy about this outfit until he saw its value. When he and his classmates wore the uniform off campus, people treated them differently, like nice young men. Echoing Williams, he said that around mid-October things changed. He began pushing himself harder and opening up during circle time. He said his GPA rose from 2.5 to 3.7. That's quite a jump. Curtis said that the circle has played a big part in students' maturation. It helps them shape their identity. When you make a mistake, it's a mistake. Guess what? I'm not calling police on you. I'm not suspending you from school for this thing you did. Instead, I'm telling you, you made a mistake. I'm telling your mom you made a mistake. I'm telling these men who care about you, you made a mistake. You have to own it. Actually, he said the toughest, most resistant brothers to the circle, to this idea of necessarily having to talk to your peers, those people have now become its most ardent protectors. They feel supported, so that when someone disrupts the space that creates that warmth for them, they don't like it. As students quietly began to understand how the system worked, Principal Williams said they'd take misbehaving classmates aside to remind them that suspension wasn't an option. So you started to see a small shift. This is transformation. We're changing the way they think. So as practitioners, I think as Buddhist practitioners, we have an advantage too. I mean, we know that everyone has this unlimited potential. So we can remind people, and we can remind each other that, there's no stopping point to what we can accomplish. And as you can see from this story, when people are treated with love and respect and care, they flourish. They absolutely flourish. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this Mind Life series that Venerable Chodron mentioned. The whole series is called Reimagining Human Flourishing. And this is so exciting. And this is something that His Holiness the Dalai Lama said. I think it was in the first day. I'm just starting these talks, which are just great. And he says this: the second purpose of these meetings relates to the crisis of emotions we witness in the world today, which is manifest in the contrast between the peace we enjoy together here and the anguish experienced in other parts of the world where people are being killed or dying of starvation. We need to show more concern for others' well-being. We need a greater sense of the oneness of all human beings, the sense that we all belong to one community. We need to promote warm-heartedness. Religion can contribute to this, but sometimes religion leads to greater divisions. In such a context, scientists are finding evidence that basic human nature is compassionate. This is a source of hope. So I think we're going to see great changes in the school systems over the next few decades, especially if they start implementing the curriculum that His Holiness has asked people to put together. We see activity like this. We've got Barack Obama, who is going to be doing more for the world than probably he was able to do as a president. And then we can do what we can as practitioners to continue to encourage each other to flourish.